It's one of my more favorite European cities. Been here a few times. Very pretty around here. It's somewhat cheap. What else? I know a few people here. There's a lot of things to do, and of course the girls are pretty. So there's not much to dislike really. Don't enjoy it that much exactly. Every well, I went out like twice in the last week, but it varies really. I've had weeks where I went out 3 or 4. Well, 4 times is probably the most I've ever gone out. I can't handle more than 4 times, but I've sometimes gone out at least 3 times a week. I've had some crazy days. It's quite a view alongside the Danube River. Not really. I mean, the bars. I've been to the bars and I like the bars a decent amount, sure. I wouldn't say they're exactly definitively favorite though. I know a number of American players that are in and out here. Don't think they're here right now actually, but there's a couple that I'm aware of that are here. And just so a couple other guys that are visiting from other countries as well. Like I know a guy from the UK who's visiting. He's not a poker player, but he's visiting, and a guy from Germany who I guess has a business here or something. And one of my poker player friends from Austria is also visiting. It's kind of like a mini hub of sorts here. Probably a few more days. My friends are leaving soon, and I'll probably go with them. After Black Friday, I moved to London, and I was there I was there for a decent, or not London actually, to the UK, and I was like sort of there, but I was still traveling a lot to other places and stuff. One of the places I went to was here. I sort of lived here for a while as well, amongst many other places. The top 3 countries that I've been to, it depends partly on what you're looking for a country. I liked Canada a lot actually. Australia is a very nice country. And the European ones are going to be harder to decide between. Let me see. I could say Hungary, why not? Because I certainly liked it here. When I was younger, I was naturally, and even now I'm naturally introverted. I like to, I prefer spending time alone to spending time with people in general. It's more like, it's always more of a spectrum thing, you know. Every person wants some time alone and some time with people. It's not completely black or white in that sense. I mean, when I was younger, it was a mix of things. It was that was a big one, and I didn't really know how to like interact with people to some extent, especially. It just didn't happen naturally for me as it did with other people. Let's say that. And I didn't quite share the same interests, which is related to it not being that natural. There's a few things. I've worked on that in addition. Like some of that happens naturally as well as you go out and do more things. You also meet other people who share your interests, things like that. To some extent, the solution is natural as well. Well, I wasn't really the best, but I was like one of the best ones. I don't know, it was just fun for me to play the strategy game. It was cool to like build up armies and do cool things with them. I just thought video games were fun. You could do lots of interesting things, and I like the competition as well. Don't know what else to say.
Yeah.
They didn't mean much to me. I mean, they were fun. They were a lot of fun for me. They were a large source of enjoyment. That was their meaning. I think they certainly helped me with poker in a few ways. Firstly, by playing these games, I became more aware. My awareness of the necessary things was increased greatly. Um, as an example, if you play basketball, it'll probably help you with similar sports like soccer because you're gonna be naturally your brain will be better at making you act in the right ways. It's essentially what I'm saying, but with regards to the comparison being I played RTS games and there was some crossover to poker. There are also some similarities to RTS games and poker. For example, in an RTS game, there's a point where once there's a lot of steep competition, it'd be very difficult to win a high percent of the time. But so what you do is you do the strategy that'll work most of the time, or have the best overall thing, best overall EV or whatever you want to call it, EV in terms of wins. So helped in that sense as well to think strategically. People don't refer to poker quite strategically, but that's one way of looking at it. Another way was that in the process of learning, I actually realized a few things that were necessary to learn poker faster, and this helped me. One error that I made that really seriously impeded me was I didn't put enough effort into seeing what other people were doing and looking at things from outside perspectives that were not ones that that with the way that I was thinking was really going to stumble upon. Basically, I just looked at what other people were learning, or I looked to elsewhere to see what other people were doing, to see what worked and what didn't for them, and tried things that they did. A lot of that's really necessary in poker to improve and certainly expedite learning. I got to know Scott playing in some games around the area, some live games nearby in Bowie. We actually played live before we played online and learned together. When I first started playing, I was the fish in the game. I assumed the games must have ran around me because the other players I was playing with were certainly better than me. Scott was probably one of the best ones there, actually. And I would just always lose my money, so that's the romantic start of how I met Scott. I actually think I didn't start playing young enough because the games were much softer in 2008, 2009, but I couldn't have known this at the time. So I just started playing young just because that's what I was interested in. It wasn't like a conscious decision in terms of like mapping out the decisions of my life or anything like that. I just was interested in poker, and I could make money playing a game. It seemed so. I tried to play. I remember that time I was broke. I didn't know if I could win. I just thought that I was smart enough to win. Uh, let's see. I remember being treated unfairly a lot and being really frustrated. Uh, and not really respected. Let's see. Um, I remember. I remember when I first had like $350 in my account and it was frozen because I let someone else use my card to deposit on a site because they didn't have a credit card or something. This person ended up screwing me over for like $80 or whatever, uh, and it was really annoying because I finally won some money and it was frozen. Uh, People were telling me, "Oh, Appleton's gonna take your money," and it seemed sort of ridiculous for like $400 to take it, especially what I know now. But yeah, eventually I got it back. I couldn't play for like a month or two until I was 18. I had to get my get a new driver's license from the DMV or whatever. My online career began when I had lost a lot of money live playing at 50 cent $1 games and $2 games. Um, I Yeah, I didn't realize that I could play online for a long time, but once I did, I decided, hey, why don't I lose my money at $5 games rather than $10 games? So I started playing those and trying to learn because I was sick of losing like hundreds of dollars at a time, and there's some suspicions that there was cheating going on in those games, which was more or less true actually. Um, yeah, so I just played online and worked on my game, and actually within like 2 weeks or so, it seemed that I was winning. I busted my account a couple times, and I remember I deposited $70 I didn't realize I had because of a banking error or whatever, and from there I just kept winning. Being since there's tons of variance in poker, the period for each level change wouldn't have been the same. I remember, for example, from going from 25 50 cent heads up to 51 cent, 50 cent $1 was very fast switch, and going from there to $1 $2 was very fast because I was running hot, and I was like sort of overrolled anyways. But then at 1-2, I spent like a few months because I had a downswing, and things just weren't going quite as smoothly. And then again at 2-4, 3-6, I ran hot and moved up quickly. 5-10, had a few setbacks and stayed there for a while. Blah blah blah. So it took like maybe like a month and a half each stake until 25-50, I'd say. Yeah, yeah. At the time, it was pretty fast. I'd say. I mean, the first couple stakes took me a while. I think there are a couple ones that took quite long. Well, I didn't really improve. I mean, I did improve like quite a bit, but I was already a winning player. Like people didn't know, but I made a lot of money in 2009 as well. Like I was getting there. I mean, basically what's happening in the poker world is there's like a perception of skill and there's also actual skill. In 2010, my actual skill, and to how much it increased, was greater than those whose perceived skill was greater than those whose actual skill was in reality, but whose perceived skill was higher. Therefore, because they thought they had an edge, and because they had not yet paid for, not keeping up with the times. Like I won most of my money from guys who weren't really, or battling in softer games. Really, that there's like this like high stakes bubble where all these guys weren't really improving because they had so much money that they didn't play like all these guys battling at 5100, 2550 or whatever. All these guys were improving this whole time and struggling to get to the top, and I just was one of the guys who happened to get there first and just burst their bubble, basically, so to speak, by being actually better than them and running hot enough to take their money, if that makes sense. So basically, I won a lot of money off guys who fell behind the curve. 2009, 2010, I thought the best player was me, but of course I'll think that. I thought that Victor gave me quite a lot of trouble. I didn't want to play him especially high. I thought Ike Caxton was really good also. Um, I felt like I had an edge against him for a couple reasons, but um, he did win a little bit of money from me, not a whole lot. The one that won the most for me from No Limit was Victor for sure. It's hard to say how much he won for a couple reasons, but yeah, and he was always like I always thought his ability to adapt was better than other players. His ability to know what I was doing, that sort of thing, was certainly better than other players. And he's like one of the few players that doesn't use tracking or any such things to benefit. He has a lot of natural skill in poker in general, I'd say, perhaps even I wouldn't want to, well, even one of the most, I should say. It was all my own money. I do not really stake players. I am highly skeptical of staking players because there are just a number of things that can go wrong. Like they say that like getting screwed over is a problem, but I actually think that being screwed over directly is not so much of an issue. I think there are a variety of like lesser psychological things at play here that are certainly a problem. I mean, one of the biggest ones is simply players are just more likely to gamble when they're not using their own money, and there's no downside for them, especially when they're in tons of makeup. Like most players are not going to have the discipline or respect for their backer to play their best game when they're stuck in tons of makeup and are likely not to get out of it. I've seen this numbers of times with other people. Yeah, staking I'm highly skeptical of. In addition, the games are getting harder and harder. I would, if I was to get involved in staking, I would be very, very cautious about who I picked. It certainly changed my perspective with online poker. Uh, it's it made me feel well. You know, when it first happened, based on my previous experiences, I didn't really think that it would be that much of an issue exactly. Didn't really seem like, my money would disappear. I didn't really, it was like a novel event for me. I had no idea what to do with it. I hadn't thought, anticipate this at all. It turned out to be like massively, like if that did, it turned out to massively cause me future EV and just dramatically alter my life though. Ironically, although I've like gotten upset about bad beats and stuff at the table and gotten very upset, ironically this was like something worth getting way more upset about, but yet I was never like especially upset directly at it. Uh, let's see. Yeah, I mostly just passively dealt with it. Um, it just didn't really. The fact didn't directly alter my life because I don't spend tons of my money or whatever or anything. Um, Mostly just try to make more money, uh, and yeah, it just changed. It ended up changing lots of things for me. I was staked for a while, but I had some complications with the staking. We didn't like my backer. Well, it's complicated. I was backed sort of by a corporation, um, and we had a few bureaucratic issues, and they were a little bit inefficient with, say, getting money on stars. That costed me lots of money, and they costed me money in a few ways. I mean, I'm thankful that they staked me. They gave me a good deal, a fair deal, that sort of thing. It just didn't work out perfectly for me, and I learned a lot through that as well. With regards to doing, I learned a lot about business. Really, just um, with regards to doing deals and stuff. It totally threw me. Black Friday totally threw me into a totally different game in many ways. Not purpose. My role in building his image wasn't like that large. It was mostly more like, um, I'd say, yeah, this guy's good. I posted that, and then what else did I do? I said I'm coaching him, which was like somewhat true, although it wasn't like massively. It wasn't like super active coaching. My agenda was, I mean, Steve came to me and was like, "Hey, can you post here and say that Steve is good?" And I just thought, why not? My agenda was just to help a friend out, or at least someone I assumed was a friend. Speaking about Jose, I think that Steve always had my interest at heart, even though he overestimated his abilities, or overestimated his. First of all, he overestimated his level of expertise, sort of, and he also had a few beliefs that were not accurate as far as like ethics and such things goes. I don't think he's like means to be a bad person is what I'm trying to say. I've talked to Steve a number of times, especially when he was releasing his book. I thought the whole thread was hilarious. And then I guess the details of the thing with Rachel and whatnot were released. That whole situation was outrageous. I actually met the lawyer in London I don't know if I should reveal the details again, just because Steve might get mad at me, but some online dating thing that turned out to that he's like was dating like some crazy girl or whatever, and then just a lot of nonsense happened. I assume he's going to school and writing another book or something like that.
Okay.
I know he doesn't want to like poker anymore. I think he's gonna try to become a writer. I'm not completely sure what his plans are. I personally thought him donating 500K away, well, I guess he gave it partly to his parents, but still was a terrible, terrible idea. Even though like it's a very nice idea, it's very noble, but I think it's like from any perspective, it's just like. I mean to give a similar amount away, but not like when it had not when I have no like income in the future. I'm not gonna give everything that I own away. Like that's silly. I felt that it wasn't fair, largely, because I think that more so than most people, I'm more likely to spite myself for the sake of what I think is fair. Certainly, historically, that's true. The more and more that I've dealt with poker, the more I've recognized that I should probably push my edge as far as it goes before it gets into being unethical. Because if you don't, then you essentially get free rolled. Someone very astute said to me recently, if you're held to higher standards than the other guy, or if you hold yourself to higher standards than the other guy, you're gonna get screwed over, which is true. Trying to think of examples. Like you also have to consider the possibility of being free rolled. So basically, you really have to decide where your ethical lines are and to what extent it's fair to push your edge. Well, that's the same thing, I guess. Yeah. There's an area where it's like not exactly clear, or it's like somewhat clear, and but it can be like a little bit difficult of an area, if you know what I mean. You have to like certainly seriously consider that. These days, it's really annoying when I get like screwed over by people, because I've like done a deal where like I just allowed too much room for them to free roll me. Like the dirt challenge, for example, I'm basically being shafted by everyone in this thing. Yeah, I just get completely shafted by that. I would say, I've tried to keep in touch. I've tried to message him recently, especially when we all got our money back. Um, he's really difficult in general. He's one of these guys who's really, in some ways, he's really in his own world. I guess there's a lot of that in poker players, and we were really close, and he's just not the kind of guy who's gonna like call you up and say, "Hey, how are you doing?" Anything like that. I guess right now he's in Maryland or something. He was in Maryland just relaxing. He did play some, but I assume he's not really playing much anymore. I think it was like late 2009, something like that. Um, well, the biggest memory was the whole bet thing, of course, which Sebra about that in detail. I wasn't there for the bet. Uh, Obviously, Ashton, for some reason, thought he could run 72. He could run 72 miles in a day or something like that. Was that right? And Asib seemed to think it was appropriate for it to bet all of make Ashton risk his entire net worth for this, which was not only not what a friend should do, it also it also was really stupid on his part too, because I think someone's gonna try much harder in that event. Um, yeah, it's really, in retrospect, I thought that was really bad by Hasib, especially when his parents came over and like we're telling him they should stop the bet. Just like, should force him to settle or something for an easy buyout price. Let's see, what else did we do? We just went out and partied. We didn't do anything too crazy. We all had our own little things going on. Hasib and I, we were on a little personal development course. We were out, where did we go to? What's that thing called? We did this leadership thing, Toolmaster or something like that. Toadmasters, I think. Have you heard of that?
Nope.
I forget what it's called anyways. We went to that thing and we looked into other little funny things, and we were out doing our own thing, and Ashton was, I guess, just grinding and doing wrestling and stuff. That's mostly what was going on.
Okay.
He wasn't playing much. I was playing a lot and trying to beat Patrick Antonius at high stakes, that kind of stuff. My incentives have changed a number of times over the course, or over a period. I did do that for quite some time. I think I had some success. These days, I somewhat question the effectiveness of self-development in general. Not the movement, not the point, not the idea of self-development, but I think that's a very good idea. But the self-development movement, I think, is not perfect, if you know what I mean. There's a lot of inefficiency there. I think, well, lately my interests have like kind of shifted again towards poker because I left a lot of money on the table in 2011. So I've become more passionate with that. And I think actually my spirituality or like my self-development has suffered in some ways, actually. It's an area which I should focus on again, at least to some extent too. In the same sense that someone who is working out a ton should do something to not lose what they had. In that sense, I should actually put a little bit more effort into that. In short, my best friends. Well, Doug was my best friend, or one of my best friends, WCG Rider, but things have changed since then. Let's see. I've been good friends with like Johannes Strassmann, a German player, Max Altergott, another player, another guy named Don that some people know of, but most people won't know. He's involved in the poker world. He's a good friend of mine as well. Let's see. Those are people who I've been hanging out with lately. Quite a bit. Although Max's girlfriend now is doing his own thing quite often. Trying to think. I'm gonna feel bad if I forget someone. Let's see. You're gonna hit me up and say, "Hey, I thought we were cool." Ashton's been a friend for a long time. Justin Smith's been a good friend too. Let's see. I'm friendly with a number of other guys, but instead they're best friends exactly. I'm friends with Antonio also. I wouldn't say we're best friends exactly, but he's a good friend as well. And then there's a few other live guys. Let's see. They don't really support me. They're cool with what I do, and they have a lot of faith in my abilities. They understand it and they trust in my judgment. I am playing the Deuce game because it's one of the biggest games that runs. That's one of the reasons why. Because I get no action, almost virtually no action from No Limit other than Ike and WCG Rider and fucking Asian Flushy out of the woodworks. He's got a lot of heart, I have to say. Actually, him, Doug, Ike, Asian Flushy, KPR occasionally. I play him sometimes. and then Bags Kjorven, who, it's kind of random, but he just like randomly completely has crushed me. I don't know why. I have no idea why. It's really strange, and I'm just like thinking X Factor. I don't know. I don't want to deal with it anymore. I may play him again in the future, but it just hasn't gone well. What can I say? And then PLO, there's not a whole lot of action. So yeah, why not the Deuce to 7 games? As far as how sharp my game is, no comment. Not quite in 2010. Well, maybe, but not. I mean, I think I could potentially have a similar year, but maybe more subject to variance. I think these days, No Limit before, the edges were bigger and people were doing like much more incorrectly than these days. In any limit game, that's not really going to be the case, or any PLO game, or even a PLO, that's not exactly going to be the case. There's going to be tons of variance and stuff. It won't be as easy, but it's doable. I couldn't name them definitively. I can give some names that I think are very good. I mean, these days, like, WCG Ryder's obviously one of the best No Limit players these days. I think Ike's really good. I actually thought Sauce was really good as well. Let's see. Nicholas, when he played, was good. I think he's a really good player, and he's doing really well in poker in general, actually. He's probably really good at whatever he plays, if he plays it long enough. Who else? I thought Kanye was pretty good. I didn't like some things with the strategy, but he's good. Let's see, in PLO, well, Phil crushed me, so there's that. Who else? B-Tech's probably one of the better PLO players. He certainly thinks he's one of the best. Isildur has historically crushed me at PLO, high stakes. I mean, I'm sure he's run hot, but he's crushed me. Who else? And then
And then Deuce to 7?
no comment.
Okay.
Well, there's no real. I mean, no one. There isn't like Hold Manor doesn't work for Deuce to 7. For PLO, for Cat PLO would actually be somewhat of a hurdle, but not a huge one, for a few reasons. Because it's 40 big blind poker. I mean, like there's not a whole lot that can happen exactly, especially with 6-max too. Anyways, I think that it seems like he has some he's like sort of capable, but I feel like he's doing some stuff wrong. He definitely seems like a smart guy, even if it's not super obvious to everyone. But I've got a lot of respect for Gus, certainly. And yeah, that's all I'll say. Sort of. I've played in a 2000, 4000, was it 2000, 4000? It was either 1K, 2K, or no, it was 2K, 4K no limit game in Las Vegas with some of the Macau guys. It wasn't like the straight up Macau game exactly. It's more of a political thing to get into that game. I've played in Macau. I've played some Chinese poker or whatever with them, trying to get some action in the poker, but it didn't really work out. Yeah, I won in Vegas. I want to play more, but it's just not that simple. Tom, I think that Tom means well, whatever that means with regards to the challenge. I have tried very hard to cooperate with him and still am trying, and I sincerely hope that he can follow through on his part with the challenge, but my faith in him actually doing something is diminishing. I think that he needs to do something to put in more of an effort, or to resolve the situation or whatever his problem is. I've been waiting for years for him to get his shit together and and give me play the hands that he promised to play me and fulfill any of the promises that he said that he'd do, and he's constantly failed to do any of those things. Yeah, I'm charging him that fine until he wants to resign or whatever. I'm totally fine if he resigns. I'll even give him a discount just to be nice or whatever, or to give him some extra incentive. But I have little faith in Tom to actually do something. I believe he means to. I believe that, in his mind, he thinks that what he's doing is reasonable, but I'm not happy with his level of cooperation on the whole. We're trying to resolve it, but Tom is extremely difficult to deal with. Extremely. He's impossible, actually. It's insane. It depends in what context. For the moment, unfortunately, I think that to offer one similar to the Dirt Challenge in terms of offering 3-to-1 and 50,000 hands would not be profitable for me. People are becoming more and more competitive, and there's only so much that you can really even push and know that. As a hypothetical example, for example, let's say for example twice. Say the best player in the world plays completely perfectly. Number 2 plays completely perfectly, but sacrifices 0.0 or 1 big blind per 100. I mean, even in that event, to offer 3-to-1, I mean, I guess you'd have to do the math, but to offer 3-to-1 on that deal probably isn't very lucrative if that was the case. In reality, what's happening is it's, no one plays perfect, but sometimes people exchange edges and stuff as long as if exploitative styles are being played, which these days everyone plays a mix of exploitative and GTO. Some people try to play GTO, but they're not really playing GTO. Or if there's like some kind of tilt or whatever, someone changes their mind, things like that, then edges are perhaps going to switch, and actually the results may not even represent like the situation where someone plays perfect and the other person loses 1 big blind per 100. It doesn't really work out that simply. Maybe down the line I'll put the challenge down, but I want to involve probably maybe like multiple games, something like that. I think that would be much more reasonable, because No Limit these days, for example, is becoming more and more efficient, and more people are building closer to better, at least the people that I'm playing against for the most part. Okay. The competition that I get from such a challenge. If I was to do a challenge against any of those players, Doug and I talked a little bit over doing such a thing. Fingers crossed, maybe it'll happen. No disrespect to him, I think he's a very good player, of course. Maybe even the best at this point. I would personally want to do it against a Isildur, just because it's kind of a long-standing rivalry between us to some extent. In addition, right now I think I have an edge versus him. I don't think it's going to happen though, because of other reasons. I did take part in the PLO side game action in Vienna. I was surprised. The games were really good, actually. There was up to 100, 200 essentially. I played and I lost some money. I lost 30,000 euros, I think. It was really a frustrating day. I just sat there and lost like every pot, sort of. Not every pot, but a lot of pots. Yeah. And then there was a hand where I mucked the winner in a $10,000 pot, and the guy scooped it up, obviously. This is a perfect example of what I was talking about earlier, as with regards to ethics. Like, my first inclination was to be nice to the guy, and in fact, one time I was nice to someone who essentially mucked the best hand, and I gave them part of the money back, and then this time this guy scooped it up, and then I thought, well, I just free rolled myself in that situation. Obviously, it's not unethical for me to do that, but it kind of is it's a little unkosher, I guess. to scoop it up. But with regards to thinking about how you're going to deal with things, some of it has to do with ethics. And in this situation, like now, I'm gonna have to say I'm gonna have to scoop it up in the future. And this was like, there's another situation where the other guy had to scoop it up also, more or less. In this case, there was not really an option. And I, again, am essentially free rolling myself if I don't scoop it up in this situation. Well, I mean, it's complicated there. I mean, I'm not really like sweating it too much. Uh, just, I mean, I kind of am, but uh, yeah, we're figuring it out basically. I thought I had an edge over that field. Uh, I didn't have all my own action in it. It wasn't like the best tournament ever by any means. There's a lot of great players in it. But I thought I had an edge. Yeah,
Okay.
I have a lot of faith in my abilities. There's a good chance for the one drop, although, I mean, I'm not 100% on the one drop yet, and I'm certainly going to be playing the WSOP. There's a very good chance. I'll be playing at least the high stakes games on the side and some tournaments. I do a mix of things to improve my game. Ultimately, it comes down to a lot of different things. One thing that's I think unique to me is if I'll like sort of improve subconsciously in a funny way, um, or I'll improve by not doing anything. It's strange. Like I'll just like wake up and then realize the solution to something I was thinking about one day. I've had a number of experiences like that, or I'll just realize, yeah, I'll just realize things and put ideas into play. A lot of what I do, I guess I just basically run a lot of thought experiments in my head, which is obviously inferior to actually like doing the math if you do it properly at least, which I do to some extent as well. Uh, but that's a lot of what I do. Um, I also run simulations. I look at stuff in Poker Tracker, things like that. I just don't not real thrilled about doing it. Don't For running simulations, I have to sit there and try to figure out how to do it and stuff. I also talk with other people. I do a number of things basically.
Okay.
Practice is worth something as well. It's similar to if, say, I'm not sure. It's similar to if I've got a question and which area of expertise I need to be looking into. Like there are subsets of poker expertise of where I need to go. For example, if I've got a question about Poker Tracker, I'll ask like the Poker Tracker guys or whatever. Um, if I mean, I feel like when I talk poker, I feel like there isn't. I mean, one of my friends has helped me a lot with some stuff, not no limit, but other stuff. Um, I talked him strategy with him some, although I don't want to reveal his name for a couple reasons. One thing that I did when I was trying to learn mixed games, when I played WSOP, when I was playing like this 30-60 game or whatever, 30-60 limit, I was asking people, hey, did I play my hand good? Things like that. For Badusi or whatever weird games. So there are no games running, so I just decided to do that and try to learn. So I wouldn't say it's a small circle. I learned things from them, for example. I try to ask people that would know the answers to my questions. Right now I'm not offering coaching.
Okay.
If I was to charge something, it'd probably be around 2,000 or more an hour. Online poker seems to be dying more and more each year. I think that it doesn't have too many more years behind it. At least high stakes, I should say. High stakes, yeah. These days, you cannot play one game and expect to make tons of money, except maybe Deuce, I guess. Uh, to continuously make tons of money from that at high stakes. I mean, like mid stakes and like games up to 25-50 will run for quite some time. They're not going to die anytime soon. I mean, there's still like quite a bit of money to be made, but it's going to be tougher and tougher basically. And at some point, it's going to be almost entirely dead. Maybe. I'm actually looking into like business and investing and stuff. I think it's actually quite interesting. I don't exactly these days. I'm looking into it, but I don't really know what I'm doing. So I'm just kind of like fumbling around and trying stuff. It's definitely interesting though. Like I think that all these looking at like what each business is doing, getting more involved and learning about what's going on under the sheets of the world is quite interesting in general. I watched some TV on the internet lately. I was watching Naruto episodes. Um, I just got curious in the series and just started to watch it. I don't watch much TV though. I read books mostly on flights, but sometimes in my free time, if like I'm taking a taxi ride. I just finished reading The Signal and the Noise. Yeah, that's the name of the book by Nate Silver. Um, yeah, and I've been reading more books and trying to use my time mostly productively. You know, I was working out for a while. I'm gonna get back into it again soon. That's certainly faltered because of online. One thing about online is like the stress is much greater for me, and you know I never really like it was always like a pain for me to deal with, and I have to figure out how to deal with it properly, and that really throws off my schedule massively. If like I'm up all night playing online poker, or if I travel in another country or something, it's made things difficult for me to work out. But I'm gonna get back into it and figure out a way to make it easier. I believe I more or less figured out a way. One sort of hobby that I have is I like dug up like a lot of eccentric music. This is more so in the past, but I had quite a collection. Um, a variety of like underground music that most people haven't heard or anything.
Anyway, okay.
Um, and I travel a lot, if you want to call traveling a hobby.
Yeah.
Done a number of things in that area. I'm scuba certified. Random jungleman fact. Depends on the context. Right now, I would probably be more thorough in, you know, figuring out how to like get involved in business or investing or something like that. If I was in college and poker didn't exist for some reason, I would probably be a programmer. I think it's kind of fun, and I was in majored in computer science for a long time, and I kind of enjoyed it. And it's essentially just problem solving. In many ways, it's actually similar to poker, and these days, software is becoming more relevant to poker in general. Um, yeah, it just depends on the context. Those kinds of things.
That's it.
All right, thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you.